Hello.
Hey!
Quite on time.
I'm very punctual, you know. It comes with the territory of being American.
I am impressed. I am impressed. Wow, like 8:30. How's it going?
On the dot. It's going well. It's going well. Not bad. It's day 36 at home now.
Dear God.
Living the quarantine life.
Not going crazy yet, right?
Oh, I've had my moments for sure. I've definitely had moments of just, you know, absolute despair and wanting to go outside, finding any excuse I can to go outside.
Dear God. Please tell me you did not upload TikTok.
No, I did not.
You didn't download it.
I refuse to do it. I refuse to do it.
Thank
I'm
God.
one of those, I'm like, no, I'm not going down that path.
Thank God. As long as you don't have TikTok, I think we're still okay. All right.
Then we're good to go. How are you?
I'm gonna go for a very small introduction to explain why I'm having you today, Semra.
Okay.
And then we're gonna talk about your career and the highlights and all the major steps in your professional life.
Okay.
I had you today with us. First of all, thank you for being with us on Instagram.
You're very
the first
welcome.
reason is that I consider you a success story. And you don't have to be Bill Gates or Steve Jobs to be a success story. I think as long as you're following what you love, as long as you're pursuing your career and the things you want, no matter how difficult it gets, and then you achieve little victories in between, you are a success story. And I think that's what you are, Semra.
Well, thank you.
The second reason is there is this belief, at least from where I come from, you know, in Tunisia, North Africa, the Middle East, that, you know, if you're American, then it's easy. If you're born in that part of the world, then there's no difficulties at all. And in that sense, you faced almost with your American passport the same problems that, you know, any North African would face trying to make it in Europe. And the third thing and the final thing is the difficulties, is that, you know, here you are a successful anchor and journalist in LaLiga TV, yet it doesn't get easy. It doesn't get easy at any point.
Yeah, very true.
All right,
very true. I would say all three of those points are pretty accurate so far. So thank you for that introduction. Oh,
you're welcome. It's the truth. It's the truth. So let's go through your career. You were born in California. What did you study? And tell us about those college years.
Okay. So yes, born and raised in Los Angeles in California. But I studied at UC Berkeley, which is in the Bay Area up north in the northern part of the state, just across the bay from San Francisco, for those of you just to kind of orientate, you know, you a little bit as to where that is. I actually did my undergraduate in international relations because I had two passions growing up in life. They still are very much my passions now, today's world, which was sport and travel. So I had played football my entire life. Because, you know, in the States, that's our sport, right?
Yeah.
Soccer. And I always loved to travel. So as I got older, I knew I wanted to live in Europe. And Spain was sort of the obvious choice from a language perspective.
But I want to focus, and I'll let you tackle this part the way you want. I want to focus on the fact that you didn't have it easy. You need a visa like everybody else to go study, then you needed a visa to work, and you needed to stay, and you faced all those difficulties that any of us with our poor little green passport. I don't have it here, but it doesn't take you anywhere without a visa. So tell us about that. Tell us about being, you know, facing that difficulty, even though you had the blue American passport.
Right. It was, and I really mean this when I say this, it was probably the biggest struggle of my life. And it was over a very extended period of years. You know, it took me about, I don't know, 6-7 years before I even was able to get a work permit. So I had to be very creative in the ways that I could find a way to stay. You know, I mean, my first year abroad, no big deal. I was a junior at college, so it was quite straightforward. I got my student visa, I came here, did my studies, went home, finished school. But when I graduated, I came back on a tourist visa. And my aim was to stay and to live and to work and to establish a life in Barcelona. And obviously, to do that, you need to find somebody who is willing to sponsor you. And I was 22 years old. I didn't have a job. I had nothing, right? And it was really difficult. I would go to startup companies at the time, you know, sort of like in the tech business or whatever. And I would go through interviews and they were like, oh, yeah, great. We'd love to bring you on board. But, you know, we won't sponsor you a visa. So get married to somebody and come back in a few months. I mean, that was the answer.
The easy way.
It was like, right, okay, so I'll just pick some random guy on the street and get married. Yeah. It was extremely difficult. So I was working as an English teacher actually, and I was being paid, and I was only making 700 euros, which seems like a lot, but in terms and context of Spain, it was not a lot at all. I mean, my rent was 400 euros. So I was living off of literally 10 euros a day. And I had to pay for transportation and everything else. I mean, it was a case of I'd go out and live my life, but I would never buy any drinks. I would never buy any food. Or it was nothing. You know? It was extremely difficult to get by. I want to just, I don't mean to. No,
please,
please,
I want to, because this is like a critical
Honestly,
part.
interrupt me, because otherwise I'll just.
No, it's okay. But because you're passing through an interesting period, and I want to also explore the human feeling through it. Sure. Obviously, this is a difficult time, and there, you know, people are different. There are people who are like, oh my God, what brought me here? I should go back home. This is horrible. So what went through your head, and what were you feeling through all these times? You know, somewhere else will be like, oh, I got a great college degree from the States. You know, this is not, you know, I'm not worth this. You know, I'm worth so much more. You know, there is a mindset. So what got you through that, and what were you thinking during those very difficult times?
I definitely thought maybe there was something wrong with me. Like, am I a masochist? You know, do I like pain and suffering? And why am I putting myself through this? Because there were a lot of extremely, extremely tough days. And days where you think about throwing the towel, and throwing the towel, going home and sorting out, you know, something serious. You know, my mom and my dad less so, but they were very much pushing me towards come back. This isn't working. You're not gonna be able to set up a life there. Clearly, it's not working. It's too difficult. This, that, the other. But I'm really stubborn. I'm really,
good for you.
Really stubborn. I think it might be the Mediterranean blood, but I'm very stubborn. I mean that in a good way, by the way, not in a bad way.
I think we figured.
Yeah. It was always such a dream to live in Europe that I refused, no matter how bad it got, I refused to let go. Yeah. And the more steps that I took, the more that I advanced, the harder it was for me to turn around and just give it all up. Yeah.
So through this tunnel, and you're going through it, there's a little light. Yeah. And there comes the light in 2013. It's Real Madrid TV.
Right.
So tell us about that.
Okay, so I started looking for master's programs in Europe because I knew I specifically wanted to do European football. That was the sport I wanted to dedicate myself to. Yeah. So while I was finishing up my studies, I basically got an internship with Jazeera Sport, and it was at the same time that beIN Sports was also starting. And so I was working there for about 3 months or so, again, still on a student visa at this point in time. And this was around April, May, June. And my student visa was going to expire at the end of the year. So in December. So I had a very short window to sort things out.
To convert.
Yeah. So as luck would have it, Real Madrid TV, actually, they called me up. They had caught wind of me and said, you know, we're interested. We're looking for somebody. And I was like, oh, my God. Yeah, of course. And then began a whole nother extremely painful bureaucracy visa process that took 8 months. And it was honestly part of the worst 8 months of my life. I had tried several different avenues to get a work visa or to get visa full stop. And the first 2 times I was denied.
Yeah. Wow.
And so it was really painful because I had gotten a lawyer who's a friend of a friend in Catalonia. Yeah. We'd spent 3 months putting together a whole bunch of paperwork to try, you know, one angle, without getting the company involved before they sponsored me eventually. Anyway, turns out the laws were different in Catalonia and Madrid, so everything she told me to do wasn't valid. And I remember being in the immigration office, trying to turn in the papers, crying my eyes out because the guy refused to accept the papers. So I called her and I'm like, you talk to him, and they're fighting. And then eventually it was like, no, sorry. So I just started all over again. And I was going against the clock as well, because my time was running out on the student visa.
To emphasize here on the fact that not only it's not easy, but it's also about persistence. That a lot of people apply for a visa once, apply for a visa twice, they get rejected, they give up, or they go to a certain school and it's either that school in, I don't know, Germany or Paris or nothing. And sometimes there are other paths that you just have to keep, you know, pursuing and persisting like you did. This is why I said you're a perfect example of that. The amount of persistence we hear in this story, you just wouldn't give up. You just wouldn't let go. You know, look at that. Some guy is sending the bicep thing.
Oh,
so, so this is it. This is the secret of success. You just keep effing pushing. You just push all the fucking way. And you don't take no for an answer. And this is it. So at the end of all this, there comes a little light. There comes Real Madrid TV, and it's the start of something completely new. So tell us about that, Semra.
Okay, so I was very green at the time, obviously. I mean, I was fresh out of my master's. I'd only been an intern for about 3-4 months. And it was a huge learning curve for me because I was basically starting from scratch. So I was doing everything under the sun that you could imagine, from writing to editing to voicing to reporting and learning, you know, how to be on screen, basically doing it in English, doing it in Spanish, helping anybody who needed, you know, any sort of help. Basically everything short of picking up the camera and filming myself. You know what I mean?
You did that. So, you put a camera and you stood right in front of it.
Yeah. So, I mean, the first year was tough because I was really ambitious, right? And, but I mean ambitious, not like in a bad way, because I know that tends to get a bad rep. But in the sense of, I felt that I was so far behind that I was starting late because I was 20, I think I was 26 at the time. You know, where most people started around 21, 22. So I felt like I had to play catch up to everybody. So I was really impatient. I wanted to grow really, really fast. And, you know, my colleague was just like, you know, walk before you can run. Just take it easy. You'll get there. Don't worry. And it was one of the best pieces of advice I've ever had, honestly. Like, he helped me keep me grounded. And for a year, I was writing basically the same training piece over and over and over and over again every day.
Well, can you develop on that? What is that exactly?
So Valdebebas is where Real Madrid train, right? So I would go every day. I would go with the cameraman. We'd film the 15 minutes. We'd do the press conference. I'd come back. I would write what happened in the training session. Who was there, who was not, who was injured, who was not, what they did, etc. Voice the piece, edit the piece, cut all the images, put everything together, you know, make the package and put it out. And obviously it's mundane because every day it's the same thing. It's the same 15 minutes because it's, you know, what they want the press to see, and then everything else is behind closed doors. So it's the rondos every single day, or it's just the stretches every single day. I mean, it was to the point that I was dreaming about the players almost on a nightly basis because I was staring at their faces for so many hours every single day.
God, people, you know how many of our viewers would pay anything to see, I don't know, Zidane training, God knows who, Modric or Ronaldo, and you were there and you were bored of it. You're like, oh, I can't do this anymore.
Well, I wouldn't say bored of it, but I was ready to. I mean, believe me, I felt unbelievably privileged, and I had many of those pinch me moments of like, oh my, am I really here? Like, this is really cool. You know, I get to see the players every day. Like, hey, what's good? You know, like they recognize me and stuff. It was great. But like I said, I was so hungry to grow quickly. Then after a while, you know, after a year of writing the same training, it was like, okay, come on, I want to do this now. I want to do that. I want to do that.
Yeah.
So I had to be patient. It was definitely a lesson in patience as well. So
this is also an idea. I mean, sometimes I do this for, to sort of translate the thought. But also,
I know what you mean. Sometimes, like in Spanish and English, things just don't
no, but
translate.
also the idea is important there, because there's an idea behind everything you said, is that part of learning, some people just go into a job and they're like, oh no, this is just what I'm going to do. I'm a journalist, so I'm just going to be on camera, look cool, hold my microphone, look awesome, talk about the game. But no, learning is filming, is editing, is doing the whole thing you've been doing. You've produced as well, you've written as well. And not only that that upgrades your skills, and it makes your values goes up as well. But then you find yourself in situations where there's no cameraman or there's no sound person, and you can handle it because Also, the fact that let's talk a little bit football before we keep going with your career. Sure. You've been there when Ancelotti and Zinedine Zidane came. That's almost the timeline where you started with Real Madrid. So we are talking about a period where Jose Mourinho is kicked out. The team is a mess. He didn't achieve the ultimate goal, which was the Champions League. And then the team does that miracle at the end of the season and win all the trophy, including the big one, the Champions League. So from your close-up look, what changed? What is the Ancelotti, Zinedine Zidane effect that made it such a successful team?
The biggest thing I noticed was the sense of calm and tranquility inside the club, quite frankly. I mean, you could feel it, you could sense it, everywhere. People were relaxed. And Ancelotti I really, really enjoyed him. Like he just what's the word I'm looking for? Like transmitted so much calm, that you immediately felt like you were in a safe space whenever you were around him.
Wow.
And I feel like he transmitted that to the locker room as well. I feel like he came in after the shitstorm of Mourinho and Hurricane Mourinho and everything that, went through the locker room on his way out. And all of a sudden comes in a figure like Ancelotti, who's just this super chilled, laid back Italian. And it's just like calma,
Yeah.
Because when Rafa Benitez came in, the whole thing changed. It was more of a tense environment. He started, closing the team off, even to us, not allowing us to go, to stay as long as with Ancelotti, that kind of stuff.
That sense of peace that he brought after you compared Mourinho to a storm, and in that sense, I think he was very divisive. I mean, that's something that we could see even from the outside, that the team became all about clans and lobbying and all that.
Oh, 100%.
So Ancelotti has that sense of, and obviously he's a coach who had previous amazing success.
I think he was a brilliant man manager, and I think I imagine Zidane learned a lot of his man management from Ancelotti. Yeah. Because he was someone that really helped to unite the locker room.
So this is also an interesting part where you were so open to new challenges. At any point you could have said, no, this is not my expectation. You wanted London or Kuala Lumpur, it was Turkey. You wanted to be number one on the list, you weren't number one. So at that point, you could have, took it personally and said, you know what, I don't want to be here. I wasn't their number one pick.
Right.
And then you moved to Turkey and started this whole new life, a new beginning. Tell us about that part, because you were part of Beyond the Game, which is the sports show there, a show I was part of a couple of times.
Yep.
And I find that show very interesting. Certain episodes are beyond remarkable. And you were part of the beginning of that project. So tell us about that, about building this whole show that has international standards from scratch.
So I definitely found the prospect of building something from zero to be really exciting and a huge challenge for me, because obviously at Real Madrid TV, it was a channel that was already established. And even though I had the opportunity to grow immensely, this was like adding another dimension of my growth in actively being part of constructing a whole new department, a whole new show, coming up with a concept, coming up with a name, coming up with the type of content we wanted to cover, and so on and so on. So my official role there was sports anchor and correspondent. So that means whenever I was in Istanbul, I was hosting the show from the studio. And then I was also off traveling quite often around Europe or around wherever for sporting events of mostly football, but also a lot of other things too, or feature stories or anything like that.
This is there's a lot of fun parts in this. So I want to talk about the fun parts in the job as well, because it's not just difficulties and, struggles. And you've traveled a lot, and you've been through a lot of, you covered a lot of major events and all that. Tell us a little bit about that, like briefly, being in, moving from one plane to the next, from one place to the next. Tell us about that life.
Well, it was, on the one hand, it was thrilling, and it was so much fun, and it was exciting, and going to new countries. I'm going to places I would never have dreamed of going, like Albania, for example, which, by the way, is an amazing place. But, you end up in the most random, remote places, and you're just like, wow, this is really cool. But extremely long days, really tough work. My flights were always at 6 a.m. So I'm up at 3 a.m, hopping on a plane. We're working through the whole day, oftentimes until midnight. So I'm working 21-hour days. And usually the trips, because it was a requirement to make it worth it from a financial point of view, you had to cover at least 3 stories minimum. But a lot of times we did about 4 or 5. So we would be on trips for 7, 8 days and working 18, 19, 20-hour days. By the end of the week, you're completely mentally fried,
Yeah.
It was exhausting. It was exhausting, physically very demanding, mentally very demanding. But at the same time, the adrenaline is what carries you through, because you love what you're doing. And I loved what I was doing for so many different reasons. And it's certainly a period of my life that I will always cherish, because now at LaLiga TV, it's like the complete opposite.
you're in the studio.
But I have to admit that after 2 years of constantly traveling, being on the road, the wear and tear, I was really tired by the end. And it was like, I need something to stop me, because if I don't, I'm not going to be able to stop myself. And this is not going in a good direction.
Well, this is the point where, I say it doesn't get easier. Like that way of life, we've obviously, we all dreamed about it, being, on an airplane all the time, landing in airports, entering new countries all the time, seeing new things. But with that way of life and the nice Instagram pictures and check me out, I'm there, check me out, I'm there. There comes a lot of intensive work that, like you said, you use the word mentally fried. Like you get to a point where it's difficult. And therefore I keep saying, as you make progress in your life, it doesn't get easier. I want to, I think the transition from TRT to LaLiga is quite personal, but I'll let you quickly approach that the way you want. But also at the end of it, I want to talk about how even at this stage of your life in LaLiga TV, you're still doing everything like from the very first day. But let's talk briefly about why you left TRT. 3 years later, was it?
It was 2 years.
2 years later.
Almost to the day. Yeah.
So this is also part of human life. And so I'll let you tell us.
Okay. So as if I didn't have enough difficulties already with my work situation. On top of that, my personal life was very, very strained, because I had a boyfriend at the time who I had met in Barcelona before I even started my career. So way back in the day when I was still at that language school and working part-time at a tech startup. So he's been on the ride with me from day one, but that meant that we were doing long distance for 5 years and going back and forth between Madrid and Barcelona, or Turkey and Barcelona, and so on. And it got to a point where naturally it was untenable. Like we couldn't keep it up anymore. And he tried to move to Turkey. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. It coincided with the coup and with subsequent attacks and bombings and everything else. And so it obviously it didn't make sense from a safety point of view for him to leave Spain to go there. So I decided to come back to Spain, and I said, okay, listen, you know what, jobs are interchangeable. Jobs, you know, it's not the end of the world if I leave this one and find something else, but people are not necessarily interchangeable.
Yeah.
And I don't want to turn around 20 years from now and regret the fact that, you know, I lost you rather than losing a job.
Yeah.
So yeah, I threw caution to the wind, decided to just move back to Spain with nothing. And thank God the stars aligned, because it was a little bit terrifying, to be honest with you.
But once again, you've taken the risk. This is the key. You've taken the risk, because no one, you know, who got into such a safe position, you know, you've worked really hard. You've told us all the difficulties and the hard work you've been through to get to that cool, comfy job with TRT. And then you just fell in love with someone, and you're like, you know what? I'm going to be happy. I'm going to follow my heart. And so you didn't have LaLiga job there was no job. You just
there was nothing.
You went back to Spain. Luckily, there was LaLiga job. And here I want you to, I mean, you're working in a, you know, obviously a prestigious brand. You're working for the official network of one of the biggest, you know, championships in the world.
Right.
But here at this point, whoever is watching might think, oh, she's made it. Now she must be sitting in her comfortable studio, making shitloads of money, you know, doing basically nothing, telling everyone what to do, getting her coffee, you know. So I want you to tell us about that part, that hard work is hard work no matter where you go.
Yeah, it is. And I think it also, it is very personal too, you know, and it depends on the kind of personality that you have. And I'm someone who is always wanting to learn more and to challenge myself and to grow more and to be better and to better myself, you know, to be competitive with myself, not with anybody else. Because everybody has their own independent journey, and you don't know what's going on with anybody else. So you can't, there's no point to compete with them. You've got to do it for yourself. And some people, you're right, some people are happy to get to a certain point, to reach their cushy jobs, and that's it. But that's just never been me. So yeah, I started at LaLiga TV again. We're working incredible amounts of hours and doing everything from setting up all of my shows in terms of the content. I do all of the research myself. I prepare all of my shows myself. I decide what content I want to cover. I mean, I have a program editor who is the person who's in the gallery, you know, that is in touch with me and all that. And we usually go through it together, but it would still be my, you know, my initiative or proposal or whatever to organize that.
Yeah.
So that's in terms of the studio shows. And then whenever I do interviews, I do all of my own research. I prepare all of my own questions. You know, all that kind of stuff. So work never stops. And you mentioned coffee. I still, you know, I love to go out and get coffee for everybody too. I don't mind.
You do that. I do that
awesome. Every weekend. I'm like, anybody want a coffee? I'm going to go get a coffee. And, you know, it's nice actually.
That's awesome. Yeah. So Semra, I mean, you know, we're like, I don't know, 50 minutes now. I want to finish with a question that you sort of answered in between, you know, in the middle of the interview, but I want you to put it maybe in few words. You know, I watch your clips from Real Madrid TV and I watch your clips from LaLiga, and it's not the same person.
Yeah.
You've evolved so much, obviously, in many ways, and the most obvious things is that you're way more skilled. You're in control of your game. So how do you do that in life? Like, how do you keep working on yourself? Because I am sure that Semra in LaLiga TV today will not be the Semra from, you know, in 10 years. I'm sure the Semra in 10 years will be even better. So maybe you tell us that before I'll let you, you know, enjoy the rest of your evening.
No, but I'm happy to talk for as long as you want me to go on for. For me, the key has been confidence and belief in myself. And, you know, believe it or not, even now, sometimes I question myself and I feel a little bit insecure every once and again. And, you know, am I doing this right? Am I asking the right questions? Am I going down the right path? Am I creating an interesting conversation? You know, I worry about those things because I want to get the best out of whoever I'm working with. And I also want to provide the best coverage that I can for whoever's watching. And I think for a lot of years, my confidence was a little bit shaky, you know, because I was kind of figuring things out on my own. I wasn't always sure that I was doing it the right way, you know, let's say, because I never really had like a proper mentor, you know, somebody that actually I would have always liked to have in my career, but I didn't have one. So I think for me, the key was trying to find how to build my own confidence and belief in myself and my abilities and my talents. And that is still an ongoing process, always.
Obviously. Yeah.
But yeah, I would say for me that has been a very important role to play in helping me to get to where I am.
Awesome. I can't thank you enough for all this. Obviously there's a lot of hearts in the comments. So I hope it inspired whoever is watching. I know that a lot of the followers are, you know, trying to study, you know, journalism or in the path towards something. And obviously you're in a place that a lot of them dream of, you know, and they dream of getting there. So I'm sure you helped in many ways. Semra, I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much.
No, please. The pleasure is all mine. Completely,
thank you.
Completely. It's been such a joy to be here with you. And thank you for including me in this. I mean, it's awesome what you're doing.
My pleasure. I wish you a nice evening. Stay safe. And no matter what happens, Semra, do not download TikTok.
You have my word. I won't even, I don't know. I won't even like investigate. I don't even really know what TikTok is. So I'm not even going to go and find out.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And anytime, you know where to find me. So
thank you so much, Semra. Have a great evening. Thank you.
You too. Take care of yourself.
Bye.